Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's information session for LaunchVic's AgTech Grants program. My name is Josh Lipscomb, and I am the Community Programs Manager here at LaunchVic. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're all meeting today. For us in the LaunchVic office, it's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we're here today to talk about grants for startups solving challenges in agriculture. For the past 50,000 years, Australia's Indigenous community cared for country by using land management that has worked with the environment. And while we're talking about innovation and new practices, I think it's really important to understand the practices that have helped us evolve over the last tens of thousands of years, but be very conscious of what we can learn from those who've been here long before us and how we can innovate for the future. One of the driving forces behind the need for innovation in the agriculture space is so that we and generations to come can continue growing, farming, and living. So let's get into the good stuff. I'm joined today in the room by Bronwyn, Catherine, and Rebecca, who are all here to make sure that I stay on track and help out with our chat and Q&A channels. If you do have questions, please make sure that you put them through the Q&A channel, and we'll get to those as they come through. And feel free to use the chat to share knowledge, advice, tips, emails, whatever else you feel like you want to pop into the chat as well. Today's session is recorded, and any questions that are asked will be uploaded to our website as well, and the recording of this will be made available through our LaunchVic YouTube channel. AgTech is a key driver to support adaptation of the agriculture sector, which is why we're all here today. And it has the potential to provide farmers with the tools, data, and knowledge to make more informed, timely on-farm decisions and improve productivity and sustainability. Despite Victoria having all the elements to be a national leader in the AgTech space, the sector is still small and immature. It is growing. It's great to see more and more entrepreneurs getting into the AgTech space and innovating in here. But we, according to a report LaunchVic did a couple of years ago, we have less than our total AgTech, our total startup pool, Victoria, is less than 5%. And so we know there's a lot of potential in this space, and we're really keen to help drive that forward. In April 2001, Agriculture Victoria signed a $2.2 million partnership with LaunchVic to help deliver a program of work to improve the quality and quantity of early stage startups. Through that, LaunchVic funded 3 really fantastic programs for early stage startups, pre-accelerators with Rocket Seeder, Sprout X, and Farmers to Founders. And those programs are running for the next 12 to 18 months to support more early stage startups to get the support and mentoring and access that they need to help start and grow those companies. LaunchVic has again partnered with Agriculture Victoria to continue increasing support for early stage AgTech startups by providing small grants of $50,000 to help startups build capability and move to the next stage of growth quickly. This will hopefully further increase the pipeline of investment-ready AgTech startups in Victoria, and we can see more and more startups flourish in the AgTech space. Sorry, I'm just looking for my notes. These grants of $50,000 per startup. Startups have the opportunity to apply and successfully receive one of these grants. Once, $45,000 of the $50,000 grant will be a cash grant, equity-free and non-dilutive, and $5,000 will fund business mentoring services. Each of these grants will run for 6 months, and applications will be accepted on a rolling basis. Applications are open as of now, and the first time we will be reviewing this batch of applications will be in May this year. The funding of these grants is to help cover business capability and growth costs and work with pre-qualified business mentors to support business growth. These mentors will be experts in the field, and startups will be able to choose from a pre-nominated panel that LaunchVic will be curating. Startups will also be able to meet with LaunchVic staff as well as AgVic staff to access networks and connections and more advice throughout that process, throughout the duration of that grant. Sorry. And please make sure you are sending through any questions through to the Q&A chat, and we'll get to those throughout the session. We've included this slide here just to do a bit of a recap. We include this slide in all of our grant information sessions. Just, what is a startup and what is a small business? As the government startup agency, we very much care about startups. We are looking to support companies that have a global potential that use innovation and address scalable markets. So startup, you're focusing on a niche product or service, you have an opportunity to grow rapidly and potentially one day dominate a global market. You're using innovation as a business model. You're disrupting the traditional industry, in this case, agriculture, and you're using technology to do that. You have a growth mindset. You're typically, have the view to exit in the long term, potentially through a sale or an IPO. And this is where LaunchVic comes in. We're here to help you. Small businesses are still amazing and they contribute great amounts to our economy. Small businesses generally aren't looking to dominate a global sector, focusing on smaller communities and one-to-one relationships and business management. Small Business Victoria is a really fantastic place, full of resources, support, grants, programs, mentoring, workshops, education courses, and they're a really fantastic bunch of people. And so if you're sitting in the small business category, we can absolutely help introduce you to some really fine people over at Business Victoria. And if you're in the startup category, please stay with us, and we're here to help you. I also thought it would be really great just to brush over our definition of what we're working with in the AgTech space for the purposes of this grant. There's AgTech, there's AgriTech, there's Agri-Food Tech. There's a lot of definitions out there in this space. But for the purposes of us and this grant round, this is our definition that we use for AgTech. It's the collection of digital technologies to provide the agricultural industry with the tools, data, and knowledge to make more informed, timely on-farm decisions and improve productivity and sustainability. Applications of these technologies can include plant or animal science, crop protection, input management, precision agriculture, indoor agriculture, sensors and smart farm equipment, imagery, animal technologies, processing and packaging, supply chain, and hardware. We generally don't include food tech or food production in our definition, unless that business idea is technology-based with high impact potential, using innovation or addressing scalable markets. If you do have any questions about your specific eligibility, today's session is very much about the overview of the grant and what it's for. But if you have any questions about your eligibility, please do email us at grants@launchvic.org. I believe someone might pop that in the chat, and we can have a conversation there about whether or not you are or are not eligible. When we're talking about business and capability costs, which is what the grant is for, this includes salaries for new positions and activities that support the product and service development costs, business process and system improvement, marketing, communication, sales, customer growth and customer success initiatives, costs that will support investment attraction, intellectual property costs, product trial costs, and anything that is new to your business is going to help you scale and get to that next point. Salaries for founders and pre-existing staff are not supported through this grant. The whole purpose of this grant is not to support regular, routine operational expenditure or retrospective activities. We want to see new things coming into the business to help you grow and scale. For the eligibility, and again, if you do have any questions about this, please do email us at grants@launchvic.org. But you need to meet the definition of what we refer to as an AgTech startup. You need to be a registered business based in Victoria. You need to be founded within the last 24 months. You can't raise any more than $250,000. If you have, you might be interested in following our grant program for new angel networks in the AgTech space. You must adhere to the Victorian Government policy on ESG prohibited activities. We have a full list of those in our program guidelines. You can't be applying for more than $50,000, and you have to apply through our online form, which is through Smarty Grants. You also can't apply for, you can apply multiple times for this grant, but you can only be successful once. So do make sure that that one application is a 10 out of 10 stellar job. This grant round is open until June 2024. And we have $1 million to deploy through this grant. So we'll be funding up to 20 startups. There's plenty of time to get your application in, make sure it's a good one, and feel free to take your time, do the application, get some advice from somebody else who may be experts in grant writing as well. But I thought it would be helpful to go through the key assessment criteria. If anybody has any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A. We've tried to keep this relatively straightforward and relatively simple. We know founders are very busy people and don't have too much time to be filling out oodles and oodles of paperwork. But firstly, we want to know an overview of who you are, a bit of a description of your business, the problem you're solving, and how that is unique to this space. We want to understand the level of where you're at. Do you have a product in market? Are you looking for customers? Are you trying to get some funding to run some customer trials, product trials? Just give us, it's a brief, 100-word overview of where you're at in that stage. Any funding you've already received, and so this is including any investments or any grants. Again, no more than $250,000. And we just want to see your standard investor pitch deck, as well as just include on there a slide of what your goals for the next 12 months are, and also any barriers that you may already have that's sort of holding you back in that space. We want to understand, who you are as people, as founders, what your experience is in from a startup perspective, but also in the agricultural space as well. And we also want to know if you've been through any education courses or programs. I mentioned we've funded Rocket Seeder, SproutX, and Farmers to Founders pre-accelerated programs, but there are a lot of other programs out there as well that are supporting AgTech startups, but also in general. So we just want to know, have you gone through one of those programs and what you've gotten out of that as well? And we want to understand where you're at as founders. Are you working on the startup full-time? Will this grant help you go full-time? Are you looking to bring on more people through this? And how much time are you actually spending on the startup at this point in time as well? We also want to know where you're at with traction, where you're at. Do you have customers? Do you have revenue coming in? Do you have trials out there, paid or unpaid? And it's optional. This one's not mandatory, but to upload any letters of support from any existing or potential customers that you have in the pipeline. And finally, we want to know what you're going to spend the money on. Where's it going? What's it going towards? How's it going to help you get to where you need to go? And if you're planning on putting any other cash or in-kind contributions by the applicant, by yourselves, into this one as well. And the budget we have there, it's a super simple template. Just pop in what you think you're going to be spending, where you're going to be allocating it, and it should be pretty straightforward and easygoing. And I'm just going to stop there for a second and just pop into the Q&A and see where we're at. A question from Sam from Earth.io. How many people will be applying for this? So there's an idea of what you're up against. Like I said, we have $1 million to deploy through this grant round, and it's open until June 2024. We expect to be funding 20 startups through that program in total. And another great question from Sam. If you're in one of the accelerator programs, does that work against you or for you? We love to see startups going through those programs. It won't work against or for you, against or for you. We definitely know that startups who are going through these programs are getting a lot of mentoring and advice and support and education that is really crucial for early stage startups. Would absolutely recommend going through one of those programs if that's what you need. A question from Dan about whether marketing and wages would be included in the costs. Absolutely. If they're new salaries new salaries or new marketing efforts that are going towards the growth of your business, absolutely included. A question from Nikki around has the startup been around for 24 months? This is based on when the business was registered. So hopefully that answers your question, Nikki. Another question down here from Ian. You don't have to have revenue to apply. You can, if you don't have a product out there, or if you don't have revenue coming in, that is okay. But just make sure that you do include that in your application. No worries. Thanks, Sam. Great comment. Great question from Marco about the timeline, which is actually on my next slide. So perfect timing. Thank you, Marco. Like I said, this grant round is open until June 2024. We'll be assessing applications every second month. We have an assessment committee that has been set up and that will have a couple of external AgTech experts who are in the process of being confirmed, not yet announced, and they will oversee and approve of the startups that are recommended by the assessment panel, and they'll be meeting every second month. Applications are open now. They opened on the 21st of February, and the first assessments will be assessed in May, with interviews with those shortlisted founders towards the end of May, and hopefully the first batch of funding will be going out in early to mid-June. So thank you, Marco, for that question. Great, excellent. I think that's answered the other questions that are currently up there. Another question that's come through a couple of times so far through the grants program, to the grants@launchvic.org email address, has been around the business services part, the $5,000 that we are allocating to spend on business services. And this will be, you will have the opportunity to select these services from a suite of providers that will be popping on our website and making available to you. But this will be things like legal services, financial services, how to access to capital, IP and trademarking registration, government grant support, and R&D tax credits and that kind of stuff, marketing and PR services. We will, like I said, we will have a predetermined list of providers you'll be able to choose from, but at the same time, it's going to be a completely open for, if you have someone that you already work with that does your tax and accounting or legal services, and you'd like to use the $5,000 to procure from them, that's absolutely fine. We'll just require them to submit an application through to us. We'll assess that and make sure that they know what they're doing, and then that will be absolutely fine to spend that money with them. Daniel has asked if they can get a copy of these slides. Absolutely. These will be made available on the LaunchVic YouTube channel either later today or tomorrow. And don't forget, if you've got any other questions, do feel free to pop them in the chat. And another question here, there was a question around startup business mentors. Again, part of the $5,000 of the 50 that we're required to spend on startup business services. You'll be meeting twice with a LaunchVic startup business mentor. There'll be 2 90-minute meetings, and they're there to help guide you through the grant process and make sure that make sure you know what you're doing, essentially, but also really help give you some really tailored and structured advice on how to get to where you need to go and point you in the right direction. Question here from Sunny. Is it possible to use the funding on developing a prototype? Absolutely. Yeah, that would be great to be helping you do that. And a question from Ian. Would we be able to help connect with farmers who would like to work with you with startups? We're super keen to help startups and farmers connect. There has been a bit of a disconnect in the past between startups and farmers and innovation and barriers and all that kind of stuff. We're really keen to help bridge that gap. We work really closely with Agriculture Victoria. I'm not sure if you're aware, but they have 5 smart farms located around the state, sort of all in with different specialties. They're really great places to get connected into and be working with. We can absolutely help make those connections outside of the grant as well. So Ian, please do send us an email, grants@launchvic.org, and we can have a chat about that as well as outside of the grant. Can one person with multiple projects apply for separate projects? That's pretty cheeky, Daniel. We would probably we would assess each one as an individual project, but we would definitely take into consideration who you are as a founder applying for multiple, and also probably question whether or not you have the capacity to be delivering on each of those projects as well. Great, more questions coming through. Keep them coming, folks. Keen to answer as many as we can today. One from Ben. How important is new innovation when considering where the grants go to? I think I understand what you're saying, what you're asking, Ben. And this comes back to what is and isn't a startup. We do want to see new innovation in the space. However, there are some great models of innovation that AgTech has been booming in California and Berlin and Israel and wherever else for the past few decades as well. So there's some really great ideas that could very much be well applied here in Australia. We would just want to make sure that you're the right person to be doing it and bringing that innovation here and starting a new startup and going on to do great things here in Victoria. Here's a question from David. If you have a new concept in an existing business, do you have to start a new company to prove it's a new idea? I think what you're saying, David, we're here to support startups, and through this grant in particular, startups that are no older than 2 years old. If you've been working at a business that's 20, 30 years old and have a new idea, you may have an innovation team that you're working with there, and they may be able to support you through that. If you have a new idea that is a startup idea, we're really keen to work with you and support you. A question here around pivoting. We do require the business to be registered within the last 2 years. Making sure, Sam, that your business has been new business or pivoted business is within the last 2 years, you'll be eligible to apply. If anybody has any more questions, do feel free to pop those through the Q&A chat. We'll be hanging on the line for another few minutes. Pat's asked a question. The startup is, yes, if the startup is less than 24 months, then you will be eligible to apply. And just a reminder, applications must be made through the LaunchVic online application system, which is through Smarty Grants. If you do have any troubles accessing or logging into that, please do make sure that you have our email, grants@launchvic.org, and we can make sure that we can get you signed up and get you logging in and getting underway with those applications. You can start and stop an application. If you start one tomorrow, but think that you actually want to go away and work on your business for another few months or whatever, you can still, that application will stay there in the portal, and you can come back to that anytime you like. So just stay on for another couple of minutes if anybody has anything else. And I'll just mention that grants@launchvic.org email again if you do have any other further questions after this. And this session it has been recorded and will be made available online over the next couple of days. I think nothing else has been coming through, so I think we might wrap up there. Say thank you all very much for tuning in today. We do look forward to receiving some of your applications over the next little while, and we'll see you soon.